close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and
Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. So, if you were tuned in leading up to it, I'm trying something new with the intro, and then also with the outro. So I saw that there was some buffering, so I don't. I'll wait to review all of that after the stream to see how everything looks. So we'll see. We'll see. I wanted to try something new though for the intro, and then for the outro. So, anyways, so tonight on the road to the DevNet expert, we're going to be taking a look at Cisco's Network Services Orchestrator, or better known as NSO. And so, just a quick recap of our study plan here. I got a comment, I think it was yesterday, on a previous VOD of one of the previous streams, asking to make this Google Sheet public and allow, to kind of share it out. I think I mentioned this kind of in the beginning. I will share this out, but it most likely will be towards the end, after I'm done going through it. So that way, if there's any changes that are done, or if I decide to add some more like additional information. So like, for example, I have like a a tab here called app requirements. And like, these are just kind of notes to myself. And the reason I think the comment came about was they were asking kind of like how Nick Russo does his study plans. I like his study plans a lot because they have the exam topic, what to go over within that week, that 10-week, plan, and then links to like labs and readings and stuff like that. I don't have all of that. I'll be honest. I have some links to videos, but most of my like links to reading, and then here's some more notes. Most of my reading is from the other study plans, like the DevNet provided one, Cisco's, like, I think it's called the Learning Matrix, and then also Nick Russo's DevCore plan. I'm also kind of following some of that as well. So I take a lot of links and notes based on those and kind of just combine it all together. So, but I will kind of release what I've, this basic outline of what topics I went over. I might try to fill in, like I said, some more details, like, okay, model-driven telemetry, what exactly did I cover and what didn't I cover? Because there are some things that I just, there's only 24 hours in a day. So there were some times where I couldn't cover everything. So, all right. So tonight we're taking a look at NSO. Hey, Marcos, how are you doing? See, Marcos is in the chat. So we're taking a look at NSO. One other cool thing. So it's, once again, this is a rumor. This is kind of coming off of top of mind for Dan. A registration time. So supposedly, it could be in early March. I also saw that they were going to release like an official date before registration opens. So like that way I'm not guessing. But right now I kind of just put March 2nd, beginning of March. That would be 2 months out from my first attempt. And that's less than 2 weeks away. So that's kind of exciting. I think it'll start hitting me more once I actually register. So, all right. So NSO. So NSO, there's a couple things here. They offer. Let me actually switch over to this here. So Cisco offers. It's a companies, like if you wanted a commercial version, that's something you would ask your Cisco account team and get a POC and actually pay for. So, but NSO does offer what's called a local installation. They have a local and a system installation. And so local is where you can install from just this on your local machine. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but however, it's kind of limited, right? So you're not going to get all the latest, what's they're calling NEDs, which essentially are, allow you to connect to different devices through different, transportation methods. So like SSH, netconf, and then also like iOS versus NXOS. The combination of all of that is basically a NED. And those NEDs can be built, they can be expanded upon, and those are offered and sold kind of with that final product. However, I got a local installation installed yesterday, and I quickly figured out I probably should just do the sandbox and get that full experience. So I got things up and running yesterday, but I figured, hey, let's just try to knock out, do this learning lab, learn NSO the easy way, and kind of just step through it together. It's not going to be like previous streams where, I already have something built, and going from there. I wanted to start really from like ground zero here and build up. So, I just wanted to preface with that, so that way if anyone's expecting anything crazy, no, this is a truly, study stream. I'll be going through this lab. specifically. I think I read it was going to be about 45 minutes, but we'll kind of talk through things, so I imagine it'll go a little longer. But to go through this lab, I reserved this the Cisco NSO sandbox. There's two available. There's an always on and a reservable. The reservable is the one I'm in right now. This is pretty intense. Like, you see this topology here. This is probably the most devices I've seen in a topology ever in any of these sandbox labs. So yeah, so this should be really interesting, kind of diving into this. So yeah, we'll step through the lab and then we'll go into the learning lab. So you'll see here we have a couple things, and they highlight over, you know, the topology. They have a production NSO server, which is here, and then they have a local installation on what they call a DevBox. It's essentially, I think it's a CentOS, but it's a Linux VM. And so they say here, like, hey, you know, there's a local install on the DevBox, but there are production NEDs, and we'll kind of go through what that is here in a second. And so you could do it either way. You can use the local install, or you can use the production one here. This is a very big topology. In no way am I saying once I'm done tonight, you know, at the end of the stream, this is it, because there's a good chance I reserve this topology again and dive in over the weekend, because this is a really big topic, and it's I'll say that I'm not as comfortable with it because it's newer to me, if that makes sense. And let me pull up real quick the study. There you go, exam topics. Marco says, I took a decision, I think you meant decision, that you'll continue with DevNet Professional, but this year get DevCore. That's cool. Yeah, DevCore is definitely, I don't know, I think when we spoke, when you messaged me on Twitter, you mentioned you had a DevNet associate. If that's the case, I think, yeah, you're on your way. You know, DevNet associate. I would say the specialist exams, so like the EN Auto, the DC Auto, some of those, the automation, the specialist exams that go with the DevCore that make that DevNet Professional certification, they build on some topics that are presented in the DevCore, and vice versa. DevCore kind of helps you with the specialist exams. So personally, I took the specialist exam first, and then I took EN Auto, and then I took DevCore, and that seemed to work out. So I didn't go over this too much, but just to highlight, you know, where's NSO fall in the exam topics? So it's actually in the 30% chunk. So that's another reason I'm like, oh boy, like, so this is like with your Ansible, Terraform, NetConf, RESTconf. We already went over that past couple streams. But 2.10 here, look at this. This is a big topic here. So creating an NSO service package to meet given requirements, and to generate a config. I mean, it's very straightforward what they want you to do. I can tell you in this stream, we won't be going into the depth of creating a service package, because I think that's something that I'll have to really, you know, sit offline and focus on. So I won't be able to do on stream, but I'll post updates, maybe screenshots and stuff on Twitter, so that way, you know, everyone can kind of see. But you can see that they're very objective here. Create a service template from a provided NSO device configuration, create a basic Yang module for service containers. It tells you exactly what they're going to include, and then even say like, and a single argument when and must conditions, right? So it's like telling you almost to a T what's going to be there. So, which is cool, because for someone that's not as familiar with NSO, like, this is pretty key. Creating basic actions to verify operational state, and then monitoring service status by reviewing the VM log file. So some actions, some coding. Ultimately, like I said, we're going to start step one and kind of build from there tonight. And then there's a good chance over the weekend you might see me on Twitter post some screenshots or, kind of talk about it a little more. Hey, Nick. How are you doing? Glad you could join the stream. All right. So let's get going. Let's get going with NSO. Let me grab a drink real quick. All right. So this is NSO. This is their nice diagram, which I'll say it divides it up pretty well. So obviously these are like the different types of users that interact with NSO, and then NSO here. So you see there's a service manager, device manager, a CDB, which is a configuration database, and then a package manager. Right? These kind of all feed together. The NEDs that I was referring to earlier are right here in the device abstraction. So network element drivers, and you can see there's multiple. And we'll dive into it, but they're basically a combination of OS type, right, and transport. So whether how the device is I shouldn't even say transport, but how it's being interacted, right? So whether it's netconf and Yang or through traditional CLI. You'll see network element drivers. That's kind of how they're made. ESC, I'm not familiar with yet, but hopefully, we'll kind of learn along the way. And then obviously all of NSO can interact with multi-domain environments, which is pretty cool. So yeah, here we go. So NSO uses NEDs to facilitate telnet, SSH, or API interactions with the devices. NED provides an abstraction layer that reads the device's running config and parses it into a data model validated snapshot in the CDB. So I guess before I go any further, NSO is built on Yang models, right? So we've gone through at least two streams. Personally, I've gone 3 weeks through Yang, netconf, resconf, and yeah, it's a lot. But as you kind of read more about it and understand like why things are the way they are, you almost appreciate it more, if that makes sense. I showed everyone that book, and I think I have it in my list here, and I know it's in the GitHub repository, but this one here, Network Programmability with Yang. If you look that up on Amazon, it's by Benoit Claus and Joe Clark. Sorry if I messed that name up. This is a phenomenal book. It's heavy because I'm reading through and taking notes along the way. So I'm about, I think, 4 chapters in. Yeah, 4 chapters in. And that's way behind my study schedule with the reading aspect because, like I said, there's only so many hours in a day. And I feel like, especially with this, labbing is more important. So I'm kind of reading as I go along with the labs. But, man, this gives so much background. And like I said, you get a true appreciation for Yang and kind of why it exists. So highly recommend that book. All right. So we already talked about the NEDs. So NEDs also allow for creating network configuration from CDB, data inputs, and sending configuration to the network devices. It covers all the Cisco platforms: iOS, XE, XR, NXOS, ASA, and major non-Cisco platforms as well. So this is pretty cool. The multi-vendor support that you get with NSO, I mean, that's huge, especially, when you traditionally think of Cisco, you think of like, okay, it might just be like an all Cisco product, manages only Cisco devices, right? Not in this case, right? You got multi-vendor support. All right, so they set up an NSO instance from a local install, connect to a network device, configure it, send show commands, and use NSO with a few basic use cases. And then either have an NSO local install or use the reservable sandbox. Check. All right, setting up NSO. There's 2 different types of installs. I mentioned this earlier as well, But there's a system install, which is on a dedicated server, and a local install, which is on a dev box. The system install is for centralized, always-on production-grade purposes. So system install, like I said, is something you would buy. That's something that you would get from Cisco. They would help you. I'm sure there's support. They'll help you set it up. Like that's like a true production grade. Set it up as a system daemon. That's perfect. So you could it's set up as a service. It boots up with the OS. Local install, on the other hand, is more used for development and evaluation purposes. So it includes documentation and examples, and we'll take a look at this. I actually read through some of the examples last night. It has a lot of documentation, so it took me a little bit of time, but I read through part of the getting started guide, but I figure this will give me going through this learning lab will kind of help as well. It includes default credentials, blah blah blah. So the learning lab is going to focus on a local install. It's easier to navigate and run locally on a laptop. And if you get a DevNet sandbox where you can get a local install already configured. So I spent a lot of time getting this configured last night, getting a local install. It didn't take me a while, just like, when everything's new, you read every instruction verbatim, right? So, hey Angel, how are you doing? Thanks for coming by. All right, reserve an instance, done. And I have this topology saved right here. So if we need to take a look at it, we will. Here we go. So yeah, you can kind of see. All right, wait about 10 to 20 minutes for the sandbox. So the sandbox is up. After you connected, log into DevBox, and I have that here as well. I actually got them color coded. All right, so I'm in DevBox. 10.10.20.50. There's a folder called NSO in the user directory. Let's check it out. Oh, no. I'm going to try to keep this. Let me know if you guys are having an issue seeing the font. Actually, I take it back. I'll just zoom in a little bit. Actually, I got to zoom out. So there's a folder called NSO in the user home directory, which was created by unpacking the NSO installer binary. So yeah, makes sense. And so if we go into NSO, yeah, I can see all that. And this is what I'm familiar with as well, with the local install I got up and running on my Ubuntu VM last night. So it unpacks and prepares your system to run NSO, but doesn't actually start it up. A local install allows the engineer to create an NSO instance tied to a project, which we have not done yet. If you're familiar with Python, think of NSO instance as a Python virtual environment. So I read that last night too, and which is actually a really good reference, at least for me, is how you spin up a virtual environment for every Python, like every project that you do in Python. It's kind of the same thing, but with NSO, you're creating NSO instances. So, kind of a neat concept. Within this NSO instance, you have different inventory configuration and code. Okay. All right. So we're gonna take a look at the NEDs now. So these are, yeah. So Angel's asking, let us know when you're on a local install or the other, please. Yeah. So I will definitely do that. I think most of this lab will be in a local install. So this is actually something you could do. So you can install it on your local laptop, not on your laptop locally. It's only installable on Linux and Mac OS though. So, but you should be able to do this if you look it up. So packages, NEDs, these are all the NEDs available. So you can see like A10, Cisco, a bunch of Cisco, Dell, Juniper. I mean, so this allows you, these are, remember, what connects and allows you to connect to the different network devices. What's interesting is here you'll see, iOS, iOS XR, and then it's -CLI. So this is basically saying all the connections or the NEDs available connect through the CLI. Over here, however, you see Junos and you see NC. I'm going to take a pretty good guess that NC is netconf, especially with Junos, because Junos out of the box is, it's kind of built with the, it's kind of model driven. The configuration is kind of model driven as well. You can view it in XML, out of the box. So I would say that's netconf, but the rest is CLI. So we know we're, all communicating with CLI across the board, and then all the different operating systems. Yeah, and this is just saying it's a software package used to interact with a network device similar to a driver. You need NEDs for later steps where you see them in action. The number at the end of the NED package name indicates the version. Okay, I mean, that's pretty standard. And you can kind of see we have multiple versions. We have, 3.0, 3.8, 6.6.7. So 6.6.7 obviously is the latest there. And it's just, okay. So using NCS setup to create an NSO instance. So one of the included scripts with an NSO installation is NCS setup, which makes it easy to create an instance from a local install. Okay. So I'm pretty sure as well we have to, let's see what happens here. I don't expect this to work, but let's see. Oh, it does. Oh, maybe they already sourced it. So in the labs I was looking at last night, and the reason I say that was NSO, at least the local install, in order for it to work, you have to source this file here, NCS RC, and that has like a bunch of environmental variables and some other things that, when you do these command line arguments like we just did here, NCS setup, it can kind of help with that. All right, so use help, and the two options we need to know are destination, dest, and package. So package is add a package to the set of packages loaded at startup. Package can be a directory or just the name of a built-in NED package. Okay, so out of the NEDs, we're gonna list them out, the ones that we want, and then dest directory where NCS instance is created. Okay. NCS is the original name of NSO, which is kind of why you see NCS so many places. Run this command to set up an NSO instance. In the current directory with the iOS, NXOS, XR, and ASA NEDs. You want to use the name of the NED folder in NCS directory for the latest NED version you've got installed for the target platform. Okay. So just to avoid running out of time, I'm just going to copy and paste this. Paste. So NCS setup, and I did this. This is another thing I did last night. I basically got an instance set up, but I didn't interact with any network devices. So I actually am hoping to learn how to add some network devices in this lab. But basically, we're adding packages for each of the NEDs. So you see iOS, Nexus, XR, ASA, and then the destination is NSO. Actually, let me back out of this and go up one level and then do it. There we go. Paste. Okay. So now I'm in my home directory. Angel says, weird, NCS was originally Cisco Prime Core name. Yeah. Cisco likes to, they like to buy a lot of their products. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, like, SD-WAN was Viptela. There's a list, but they honestly NCS could have just been the original name for Prime NSO, and then Cisco decided to change it, and you know, it's kind of built in-house. So I really don't know the origins of NSO. All right. So we created the NSO instance. We named it NSO instance, which you can see here. If you look at NSO instance, so let's dive into it. NSO instance. You can see that there's a logs folder, a CDB, which is that configuration database, a configuration file, packages, script state, and a README. The NCS conf is a configuration file, customize the NSO instance. So let's take a look at that actually. NCS.conf. Here we go. And you can see it's all XML. Let me try to find something more interesting. Built-in SSH server. So to SSH directly to the netconf server, right? So you have you have the Linux server, and then you have the netconf server, quote unquote, 2024. And the reason that kind of it like pops up for me is, or why it pops in my mind, is because the production instance is the same way. It uses 2024. So you could SSH to port 2024 and you'd be right into this NSO instance. You can see the web UI, it's enabled, running port 88. So XML, man, it's easy to read, but I mean, a file this big, the spacing actually does help a lot, but if it's all jumbled together, it's a little verbose for me. Yeah, Angel says, ooh, XML. Yeah. I mean, yeah, just got to take it what it is. All right, so that's the configuration file. Packages, directory that has symlinks to the NEDs referenced in package. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So if we go to instance packages. So these are just symlinks to, and let me just do LA. Hold on. I apologize for that sound. Yeah, cool. So you can see they're just symlinks. They're just soft links to back to the original NSO folder that we had. So they're not making like hard copies. It's just a link back to them. Directory that contains all the logs. So let's do no logs yet, which makes sense. Now you can start the NSO instance. So to start it, you have to go into the folder and then type in NCS. And this takes a second. Nah, Angel, you're good. You said JK. Nah, it's yeah, I can see pain points for both actually. Whenever I was dealing with or like looking at netconf versus restconf and like, you know, sending data via netconf and then using restconf. Obviously there's some like netconf is more transactional, but restconf, man, like some of the JSON, like missing a couple curly braces, it can drive you bonkers. So I've seen like, but it's also a little cleaner. There's a little less, you know, little less noise on the screen. But yeah, I can see why people don't like XML. All right, so it's starting up. So what we've done so far is we've created the instance, we've referenced the packages, and now we're starting up that specific instance. So picture it as like, for a Python virtual environment, like you source, picture that. Like, you know, you're doing the source and the activating the virtual environment, I guess is a better way of stating it. All right, so it looks like it's back. To verify, we're gonna do status grep, and then we're gonna grep on status, and you see it started. Yay. All right, now we're gonna populate the NSO instance. Okay, so this officially here is where everything's gonna be brand new to me, so you know, stick with me. All right, now you have a local instance. You need a few more things to start automating. An auth group enables device credential authentication. So AAA group, that's kind of the way I read that. In reference to like a configuration. I know authentication is just one of the AAA acronym. Device groups are helpful but not required. So setting up device authentication, you can add your devices into its inventory. It enables NSO to read and write data. NSO uses auth groups to set up credentials. Set up a simple auth group for your network with these simple steps. Okay. Enter your NSO instance. So this is kind of neat here. I remember doing this as well. So NSO has its own like CLI. So picture it as like a Cisco device, right? It has its own CLI. So NSO has the same thing. So we can do NS or NCS. It's CLI, yeah. CLI, admin, and then C. So this last flag here, it could be C or I think J, right? Or no, the default's Junos or Juniper style, which is kind of funny, isn't it? So the command takes, so basically when you log in, you can choose to make it what they call Cisco style command line, because the default's a Juniper style. And then the U obviously is admin. So we're putting the -C to say we want it Cisco. So now you can see if I do a question mark, I get just like you would, with the Cisco device. And we do show question mark, and you can see everything, that you would, that's available. So it's very much like a Cisco device. All right. So you can issue the NCS CLI from anywhere on the dev box once NSO is running, not just the NSO instance. Okay, that's good to know. Let's enter config mode. So we'll do config. Hey Ganesh, how are you? Hey, good to see you. I don't know if you might have been in the last streams. I haven't seen you though in the chat for a while, so glad you're here. Angel asks, like Linux jumping from bash to shell? Yeah, kind of. I would say this is like a different CLI completely, but yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from. All right, so to set up a new auth group called lab admin, this group uses a default, I'm just gonna minimize it. This group uses a default username password combination of Cisco for the devices with a secondary password of Cisco. So I'm gonna type some of this out, because like I said, I didn't do this yesterday. So we're going to call it lab admin. So devices auth groups group. Default map. Oh, wow. Let's just remote name Cisco. Default map remote password Cisco. And default map remote secondary password is also Cisco. Surprise. All right, so that basically sets up an authentication profile for us, or what they call an auth group, but it's that one set of credentials we then can use to interact with the devices. All right. Where are we going? Enter this configuration. Entering configuration into this configuration in NSO stages it, but you must use the command commit to commit it to the configuration of the system. So you kind of have to look at this as one large system that owns all of your devices. And every little piece of it, whether it's configuring NSO itself or configuring your devices, everything is considered configuration, right? Just picture like the running configuration of all your devices, but it's, they're all in NSO, and NSO is that central, think of it as like that database, right? So, okay, but you must use the command commit to commit it. Okay, before you do so, you have to return to top. Okay, so instead of exit, you use the word top. And then we're gonna do show configuration. So I did learn this as well. Show configuration only shows the differences. Think of it as like git status. You know, if you stage changes using git add, git status, how it shows the differences. Actually, I guess git diff would show the differences. Git status would show you the files that are ready, but kind of like using a git diff, I guess, would be a better example. Okay, so you'll see show configuration, and we have everything that we just created there. The auth group with the remote name password. This command provides a convenient way. NSO uses a local encryption model to store the credentials in its database. Okay. So we'll commit complete, we're saved. You can create as many auth groups as needed for the different variations of authentication. Auth group can use SNMP or certificates in addition to traditional username and passwords. That's good. And then it uses RBAC, role-based access. So that way NSO knows who's logged into the system. So with your auth group set up, we can now begin adding devices. You need the IP, protocol, auth group to use for the device, and the NED. Okay. Stay in config mode. Add edge switch 01. So I think edge switch 01, let's take a look at here. Edge switch is an iOS device. And I know it's hard to see on stream, so it's probably still hard to see. But it's an iOS device. Oops. Whatever. I'll just keep it super zoomed in. Nope. Back here. All right. And it uses telnet. You disable SSH host key verification. In production systems, you can configure it or just fetch to learn. All right, so let's type this out as well. So we're adding edge switch 01. And let's just see the options available. Oh my gosh. These are all the options available when adding a device. So we're gonna add the address, which is 10.10.20.172. Auth group. Oh man. Oh, and you can use tab completion, which I will. You may see me do every once in a while. So that is available. Device type. Ooh, geez. Device type. CLI. And I'm only doing this so that way I can personally understand kind of where I'm going, or like, you know, what needs to be done. I think they're using the latest, which is 667. So I'll just highlight this. All right. And yeah, that works. So we assign the NED. We're also gonna do, oh, the protocol. Okay, so we have CLI and then the protocol. So that's pretty neat. And then SSH host key verification. None. Commit. Perfect. Verify that you are still in the CLI context for the device. I am. But they said verify. Devices device edge switch 01. Use connect command to determine if you could connect to the device. Result false. Is southbound locked? Oh, perfect. Oh, that's expected. I was like, oh, great. Now I got to start troubleshooting. The output shows that you're currently locked. NSO's default mode for devices is in a locked state that prevents NSO from manipulating devices before the network admin is ready. You can use this state to disable a device that is currently in maintenance to prevent NSO from acting on it. Oh. So you can change it by going to admin state, unlocked, commit. Now let's try connect. Oh, sweet. So it says it's connected. Port 23. can manually type the commands for each device. Great practice, but a bit boring. You can use an API to add the devices. So it's saying repeat the process to add the remaining devices. Manually type it, use an API to add the devices. You can query the production system install NSO that has the full device list already and save the output to a file. You can then use load merge command from NSO to read the file into staging. This exercise uses the third option. Okay, so personally, I'll go through probably again and re-add a couple devices. I honestly, with the local install on my Ubuntu machine, I might actually add the CSRs that I have in my CML, the one that we were using for model-driven telemetry. I'll probably practice on those. But for now, I'll continue following the exercise here. So open it. This exercise uses the third option. So basically what we're going to do is query the production system install, which is that system install I told you about. We're going to, since it already has the full device list, we're going to save the output. We're going to get all the devices, save it, and then merge it into this local install. And it closed here, but oh, and I guess I didn't really say anything about this. Hold on. So this is the production box, and you can see I'm going to port 2024 directly, because remember what they said about the system install is you can go into, because it's installed as a daemon or a service on the Linux box, you can log right into it. You can log right into the service as it's running in the background, right? So, all right, so I'm logged in to this box, and NCS, CLI, username, admin. So the interesting thing here is because it's a system install, we don't have an NSO instance to activate, right? We used NCS before. We don't have to do that now. We're just logging right into the CLI. And I'm an idiot because using port 2024 logged me directly in. I didn't have to use the NCS CLI command that I just used. You only have to use this if you're in the bash, your SSH, you SSH port 22 into a Linux box, you would use this. So no need for that. All right, show run. So we'll do show running config, devices, device, deselect config. Gets all the device configurations stored in NSO, excluding the configuration it has stored. Okay. Oh, okay, so I get it now. So it just, normally I guess it would return the config along with the devices, but we only want the devices. And this is exactly what we added to the inventory previously. Copy the output of the command, accept the prompts, and save it into a file called NSO device config. Okay. Let me copy. Oops. All right, so that's copied. And save it into a file called NSO device in the user directory on the dev box. I'm just gonna open up another SSH session. 10, 10, 20, 50. I think. All right, so we're in the home directory of the current user. So I personally like Nano. I know there's Vim versus Nano versus there's a bunch. I personally like using Nano, so I'm gonna use Nano to create this text file and paste. So that pastes everything that we got from the other device or from the production server, and just to verify, we'll just do a cat. To concatenate it here, and you'll see it's all here. So, okay. All right, you can use Vim Nano or Remote Desktop Text Editor. Yeah. Close the terminal session from the production system install. Okay, I'm not gonna close it. I'm gonna keep it open. It's just gonna be over here on the red tab. Enter the NSO CLI configure mode. Enter config mode and load the file with the load merge. Okay, so I think I can do top. Yep. And so I'm in the configuration mode. We're gonna do load merge home developer NSO device. All right, so I guess this is gonna, okay. I'm actually gonna use this just because I was reading about yesterday, the dry run option. So commit obviously saves it like right then and there. The dry run kind of tells you what it's going to add. It's kind of like a diff. So you can see it's adding, and this is in kind of that Yang format. And this is where I was saying, right? Like it looks like Yang. I mean, technically, I guess it's like could look like JSON as well, but it's kind of that Yang format, right? And so that's the nice part. Like if you know Yang and you know how to like read and write modules, like NSOs, it's easier to comprehend. And that's kind of why I built my study plan the way I did with NSO after the Yang and the model-driven telemetry, because I'm no way a master at Yang. I still have a lot to figure out with it, but it's easier to understand, you know, looking at Yang modules. So, but anyways, commit dry run. This shows all the devices being added. That's fine. We'll rock a commit complete, and then use end to exit config mode. Now if we do a show devices list, boom, all there. So it's the host name, the IPs, and then the NED that's being used. Finally, make sure NSO can communicate with these devices by attempting to connect with them all. So this is kind of neat. So you can do devices connect. Perfect. So it's trying to connect. It connected to them all. So, you know, result true, result true. Sweet. So we have connectivity to all of our devices now. That's pretty simple. I mean, I wasn't counting, but within 15 minutes, we talked about what NSO was and then got all of our devices in there up and running. I know we copied it from another system, so I'm not saying like, oh, it's just so easy. But there wasn't many credentials to fill out. So, you know, that just the basics. Finally, make sure NSO can communicate with these devices by, okay, yeah, we already did that. If one or two devices don't respond, try again. Okay. CML devices may have bugs. Okay, so these devices are actually hosted in CML. Maybe some of them. Okay. Once again, that's like me just not understanding the topology. I saw CML in here. Oh, duh. Okay, CML network simulation. Here we go. I bet all these devices are in CML. Now, the reason I was like wondering that is because it says there's CML right here, 10.10.20.161, and if you go to 10.10.21.61, like you get the CML login, right? So, but that's kind of cool. Where was I? Okay, so now we got to learn the network state. So we connected, we added devices, but now it hasn't learned it. It teaches the network configuration. Verify that there are no real device level configuration yet by looking at show run devices. Okay. Let me do that. Show. Oh, gotta spell show right. Show running devices. Device. Edge switch. Config. Perfect. Okay, they were just verifying that. Here it's just saying to verify that there's no other system configuration on the like stored in NSO for the device, and there's not. We just added the device. So what we're gonna do now is saying devices sync from, and what this does is it pulls in the configuration from the devices. Sync from enables the network devices to learn the current configuration. Be sure you do not enter devices sync to by mistake. NSO attempts to overwrite the configuration on the devices with the blank configuration NSO has. Yeah, so devices sync from. So now we're learning. Otherwise, like you see here, all of that would have been, oops. All of this configuration, if we did device 2 or sync 2, it would have just basically wiped the devices. Okay, so sync from, everything looks good. Result true. Perfect. And let's do that same command. So I'm going to just keep typing it out because it's good practice. Is it devices or devices? Device, edge switch 1, config. Perfect. So we're looking at the config as NSO has it, right? We're not reaching out to the device right now and we're not logged into it, right? We did a sync from, it's stored in the NSO database or the CDB, and you can see, you know, we have a banner, interfaces. It looks a little different than your traditional iOS XE, but not really, right? It's more compact, I guess you could say. But you can see like banner's still there, switch port. It just doesn't have the, you know what's throwing me off is there's no exclamation point separators, vertical separators, right? So you know how sometimes like these, you sometimes get these between different parts of configuration. Here it's just all together. All right. So, yep, verified that. Take a moment, explore the configuration of other devices. You now have a snapshot of the running config of every device in the network. Grouping devices. It's not required, but makes working with the network simpler. You can create network device or device groups to organize your networks. Or organize your devices into logical groups. iOS devices, iOS XE devices, XR, NXOS, ASA. Let's just go ahead and do it. All right, so we're gonna do a device. Wait, I think I had to go into config mode. Yeah, config mode. Config. Devices, device group, iOS devices. And I'm just gonna copy and paste the uh-oh. Did not like that. Top. Oh wait, cancel. Oh no, I'm just gonna paste it anyways. Top. I have to remember using the word, using top instead of exit. If anyone has questions, kind of as I'm going through this, I know it's just copy and pasting. I'm just, you know, I want to get through things. I want to get through like, you know, configuring, checking operational state and stuff. And so the grouping aspect, I mean, it's just some syntax to remember. So I'm not like hard pressed about it. Actually, let's go top here and then. So that didn't go through. At least I don't think it did. Nah. So we'll have to just do device. We'll just have to do the last one manually. Device group, all. So it looks like you can kind of just group of your groups. And then we'll say ASA, iOS devices, NXOS devices XR. All right, top, commit, end. As an example, we can do check our devices, device group, iOS devices, check sync. So we'll check the sync for all the devices. We're in sync across the board with the 3 iOS devices. Okay. All right, so we're good. We're connected. We have a running instance of NSO. We got our devices. We have our device groups. Exploring the device configuration. NSO retrieved all the running config, store them in the CDB, which is that configuration database. This retrieval is the heart of the magic that makes NSO so powerful. With CDB, you have access to the entire network's configuration from a single point. So there's the NSO CLI, the web UI, and API. So there's 3 ways that we can get all this data. We're just in the CLI for right now. Even more exciting, this configuration isn't a text file backup, but a fully modeled config. This is huge. A fully modeled config. Because, you know, a lot of these services, or, you know, whether it be compliance or configuration management, normally it's just a text file in the background. Like, they do some regex, or, you know what I mean? So having a fully modeled configuration and based on like a Yang data model, that's pretty stellar. All your network devices, including legacy CLI, now have a fully parsed local configuration snapshot. Let me see. The CLI structure and tab completion is read from the NED Yang models, providing the ability to see if a command is supported with tab completion. That's kind of cool right there. Nick says, in a prod environment, it might be a good idea to double check the candidate config before committing. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we'll probably get to that here with the next step, updating device configuration, because using that commit dry run option, it shows you what's going to be changed. And it looks like here the CLI structure and tab completion is read from the NED Yang models, providing the ability to see if a command is supported. So that's kind of cool. NSO CLI enables tab completion. Yeah, we got that. Start by reviewing the full running config for a single device. Okay. Let's do this one. What is this one called? Internet router 1 config. Cool. Version, host name, ports, and then the line. VTY lines. Show running. Yeah, so it's kind of just walking through, you know, each piece of this now. Tells NSO what information. Okay. You can use the deselect keyword to filter out items. So I guess deselect is like exclude, right? Like when you do a filter with Cisco iOS, I would kind of picture deselect as the same thing. So if we did the same command, so we have the config. Okay, so we have devices, and then we have config. So this is just showing us the config aspect of this device, right? So if we took out config, I think this is gonna be a lot of output. Oh no. So there's our config header again, but above it shows what we added to our inventory, right? So, or that auth group. I shouldn't even call it inventory. So the address, SSH key. No, I mean, I guess it's inventory because we had to create the auth group first, but so if you use deselect, I imagine anything under config will be excluded, and we should just have this returned to us. And so we'll do that now. Deselect config, and sure enough, that's what we have. There it is. Now let's use the power of the modeled config a bit more, retrieving just the interfaces. So if we do show devices, device, internet, router 1, config. Oops. I forgot to do show running config. All right, so this is where the interfaces start. So let's do interface. Okay, so it filters down through and finds each interface here. That's pretty neat. William George says it's an anti-sec. Yeah, it's it's like what not to select. Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be kind of neat. So you can output the data into JSON or XML. So right now it's just like text, right? So we're just getting the interfaces, and you can see config and then jumps right into the interfaces here. So if we do that and we say, nah, I want a little bit of XML because we've had a lot of fun with XML. Oh, wow. Okay. So we have the XML namespace, the device's namespace. That's awesome. So I mean, think about all of like this data. What you could do with it, right? Same thing, JSON, wow. You could feed that into database, you can serialize it. You can make it, I mean, that's awesome. And you do that straight through the CLI using the filter, the display filter. So display JSON or display XML. So that's pretty awesome. Let's try a new device, this time a Nexus device. So, okay. So devices, device, and this one's the dist switch. I think it was switch 01. Yeah. Config. So remember, this is a Nexus config, so it's going to look a little different. Different interfaces. Maybe. Okay, I'm just going to press Q. I don't know where the end of that interfaces was going. All right, so let's just get the VLAN, which I think this is going to get just the SVIs. Don't forget you can use tab completion. Why do I keep doing that? Look at the VLAN interfaces. Okay, so config interface VLAN. Okay, so I forgot interface. And you can see here, it actually said, hey, your element doesn't exist. And it's probably because it's looking at the hierarchy and it sees interface first, and then, instead of interface Ethernet, it'll be interface VLAN. Nick asks, what family is that Nexus? If I had to guess, probably 9K. The 9KV, but you have a good point here. Let's use NSO. You know, why even look at let's use NSO. Okay, so that showed the VLAN interfaces. Let's see if we can get version out of here. Oh wait, no, you were asking. Oh, I'm an idiot. You were asking about the family of Nexus. So it's running 9.2 or 9.2. Let's see if I can get platform. No, it doesn't exist. Okay, never mind. Yeah, Angel says, yeah, virtual 9K specific for virtualization. Yeah, I'm almost sure of that as well. Oh, yeah. Hold on. I'm like 99% sure, but since you asked, I will take a look. Let's see. Where's the CML? 10.10.21.61. I will look for you. 100%. I'm gonna guess it's developer. What's the CML login? If they let you log into it, that's the real question. Devbox, NCS. All right, we might be out of luck. I'll try these credentials real quick. I don't even know if they allow you in here, to be honest. All right, never mind. Looks like it worked. Okay, so it looks like they have one lab. Wow, look at this craziness. Yeah, since it's bundled, since it's in CML, I could guarantee it's the NXOS, which comes with it's a 9kV. So yeah, that's what I figured as well. But hey, I wasn't planning to dive into the CML, like looking at CML, but glad I did. It's kind of neat to see how someone else sets up their lab. They do the same thing where they have, you know, a bridge to their network, and then actually, I'm curious, is this in bridge mode? Yeah, it's in bridge mode. Cool. Yeah, Nick, it's all good. I'll actually, to be honest, I wanted to see what this looked like. So I'm glad there was a reason for me to jump into the CML. Okay. Back to it. So, all right. So we remember case sensitive for the first letter. Common mistakes are interface VLAN instead of interface VLAN with capital V. Retrieve all the IP addresses for all SVIs using the wildcard. Cool. Let's figure this out. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna do interface VLAN star IP address. It's kind of like regex. So we're saying, okay, check the config for any SVI, basically, right? Well, any SVI, because the star, and then give me the IP address. Gosh, that's so easy. That's scary easy. Do you imagine if you had all your devices in here? You could do show running config against, I mean, let's just try it. Device star config interface. Let's just check. I don't know if this is gonna break anything, but we're gonna find out. So I'm gonna try to get all the IP addresses for every interface on every device. No entries found. Okay. Maybe I went a little too far there. We'll do interface. Oh, I'll just get all the interfaces for every device, maybe. Haha, look at that. So all I did was I did show run against devices, device star, so every device or any device. Check the config and then find the interface. So for core router 1, we have all these interfaces. For core router 2, we have all these interfaces. Oh, you ready for this? You ready for this? Now like the brain juices are flowing. All right. So now we're going to display all that in JSON. Oh my gosh. All right, so now we have a list, right? A list of all of our network device. So now, okay, core router 2. And so you can parse this. Think about this. This is JSON, right? You can parse this and find exactly what you want. And this is for every, I mean, I can keep going, but like you kind of get the idea. That's pretty neat. Nick asked, I wonder if XPath expressions would work here. Yes. They, so I don't know about the specific show commands I'm running, but I know XPath works within NSO because it's all built on Yang data models. I haven't got to that point yet, but that's a good point. All right. Allows wildcard commands. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. See, I'm getting carried away, but I'm excited, right? So whenever I stand up, because obviously you guys have seen my CML instance, I'm gonna get the CSR stood up and a Nexus 9K stood up either tomorrow or sometime this weekend, and I'm gonna add them into NSO and just go ham sandwich on it. So as always, okay, so now we're gonna update some configuration. Yeah, go into config mode. Okay. So we're gonna go into config, and we're gonna go into a specific device. We're gonna say devices, device, dist, switch, 01. There we go. Remember, look at the thing. So you enter another config to indicate you're configuring the device. The prompt changes again to config. Oh my goodness. All right, so I guess now it's saying, okay, you're in the configuration of the device, but to really get into it, you have to type config again for config. And if present working directory, we can see we're in for the device and the config. Rather than adding additional keywords, shortens the prompt to config to indicate you're in a nested config state. If you want to know where you're at, you can do print working directory, which we've done. Cool. Angel asks, are you setting up NSO in your home lab? Good question. I already did. I got to the point, so I set it up. I got to the point where I had to add network devices, and I spent about an hour reading through NSO documentation and getting it set up. The setup probably took about 25 minutes. It wasn't that bad at all. It's not, the local installation's not bad. So if you have the hardware requirements, which I think, I forget what they are. They're not big, to be honest. Like if you have a beefy laptop, or at least, you know, it could run on your laptop. Let's say that. But yeah, I have it running in the home lab. I don't have it configured. So I got to get auth groups set up, the devices added, and then go through kind of this. I'll probably end up going through this lab again, just for my home lab. Okay, so now we're in the configuration mode for the disk switch 01. We're gonna create VLAN 42, the answer, exit, and we're gonna create an interface. So this is very much like you would configure an iOS device, right? This is what you're used to. Description, answer to the ultimate question. IP address 10.42.42.42. It says I can do this the length. Cool. All right, just want to make sure. All right, you've now staged a new configuration, but it isn't live yet. To make it live, commit it to the CDB, which pushes and updates the network. Before you do that, though, let's check out another handy feature. Return to top of config. You could type exit repeatedly, but top is faster. Okay, so you can use exit, but exit only takes you one level up. Top takes you to the very top level of whatever sub mode you're in. Review the current configuration using show configuration, which we've done before. So you can see here, show configuration, it shows exactly what device we're affecting and then the configuration. So we're creating VLAN 42 and then SVI 42. All right, suppose you want to prepare for a larger automation project where you wanted to make this change with netconf or restconf API for NSO, you can preview the XML version of the configuration using display XML, and same thing with JSON. But XML, you can see the complete payload for an RPC edit. Cool. So this you literally can use in an edit config or edit RPC. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, and this is exactly what I showed there. Oh, let me just check, because they didn't talk about JSON, but let me see if that works too. Nah, so it's just XML. They have one called curly braces. Let's see what that's about. So, I mean, it kind of looks like JSON. I wouldn't say, it's definitely not like a RESTconf, you know, something you can use in a RESTconf payload. I don't know though. I really don't know. Maybe curly braces is JSON, but looks like it. Angel asks, no problem. Next question. How far or deep you see NSO at DevNet Associate and at DevCore whenever you can? Nick says, I see you're a man of culture as well. Yeah, Angel. So you have to obviously know what NSO is, and then you also have to understand the use. Think of it at more high level. So what we're getting into now, like I will say, if you complete this lab, I personally didn't go through this lab with studying for either of those exams. Not to say you shouldn't, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I knew what NSO was. I kind of understood the architecture and how it's built, and then specific use cases it would be best for. So I hope that answers your question. All right. So, let's see. William says, kind of XR-ish maybe. I assume it's not supposed to be Juniper-y. Juniper-y. I like that. I like that, William. I might take that. Juniper-y. No, so I don't know if you heard. So at the beginning, when you log into so I'm in the NSO CLI right now. You actually, by default, it goes into a Juniper style, what they call a Juniper style CLI. So I wouldn't say it's out of question. And you said kind of XR-ish. Yeah, to be honest, I haven't had much experience with XR. I've seen a couple configurations, but I've never actually had to configure iOS XR. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say it is more like Juniper-y. That's an awesome word. Angel said, yes, it did. Thanks. All right, cool. Nick asked, thus far, I hadn't seen NSO in DevCore, only seen it in DevNet Associate. True. But Nick, I will say, definitely have at least an understanding of what NSO and the way it could be used. That would be my recommendation. And Nick says he's on the last module of the Cisco Digital Learning going over databases. Oh, yeah. So sidebar, Nick's going through the DevCore, I forget the exact name, but it's like the Cisco Digital Learning DevCore learning, not module. It's not a class. It's a learning course. That's the word I'm looking for. The on-demand course. And I did the same thing, and I will say it helps tremendously if you're studying for the DevCore exam. But yeah, Nick, man, I'm praying for you. That databases section is dry. And it's not the content or anything like that. To me, just the databases and learning about different databases just isn't for me. It was cool, like, to understand the different databases, but yeah, good luck. But you're almost there. That's the key. You're almost there. All right, so we displayed it using the curly braces. Now let's do a dry run. Out format. All right, so if we do dry run by itself, I think it maps back to the CDB and how it's mapped in there. But if we use the out format native, I think it's how it's going to display in the CLI. Yeah. So it's going to be more like how it would show up in the CLI, I think. Why does this look weird? Let's see. Let's read. You may want to know that what NSO actually sends to the device. You can use the dry run option before committing, and the native format shows exactly what NSO sends. And now you're ready to make a change. Issue the commit. Okay. I got nervous there. I don't know, like, I think most of you in the chat are also network engineers. I always get nervous when the terminal hangs like that. You know, like, especially when you're sending configuration, it's like, uh-oh. And this is even a lab environment. It still, like, makes me like, come on back, cursor. Nick says, it is interesting to me, so I have that going for me, which is nice. Yeah, hey, Nick, more power to you. I'm glad that you like it. It's super important. Databases, especially, like, as you get more data and learn how to get data from the network using parsers, using telemetry, the only way that it's going to be valuable is if you store it somehow, right? So knowing databases and how to navigate them and how to set them up, it's huge. And knowing the benefits of, relational database, non-relational database, huge. Okay, rolling back configurations. Oh, this should be fun. Let's do this. You make a network change, immediately realize you made a mistake and must undo it. But some changes are huge. How do you roll it back? Stores rollback files for every change, and you can load up a specific change by referencing the ID of a change. If you provide no rollback ID, it uses the latest commit. Each commit is a rollback. So if you use a single commit, if a single commit updates 10 devices, a rollback undoes all of that. This reminds me just like Git. So like Git, you can do a reset, or you can revert back to a commit based on the commit hash. That's the kind of the same idea, except using a commit ID, right? All right, so let's see what it takes to roll back to the latest change. Still within conf mode. Show configuration, rollback, changes. So we're just seeing what rollback changes would look like, what the latest change would do. So it basically would just do a no on the VLAN and the SVI. Now load up these changes. Go into config mode and set up the rollback with the command rollback configuration. This stages those changes. Okay. So we're gonna do rollback configuration. I think you can also mention an ID. There we go. Cool. So these are all the different IDs here. So we can actually say, okay, let's pick a specific ID, or we can just do the latest. And I think here, yeah, we're just doing the latest. So now we didn't commit anything yet. So we're just seeing the difference in what the database or what the action will be. And so here it shows we're just gonna delete the VLAN, the SVI, out format native. So we're going to see what exactly it pushes. And remember, if we push VLAN 42 to all of our devices on our network, it would delete it off every device in this one transaction. So, yeah. So no VLAN, and we'll just do a commit. And so now we'll go through and actually delete VLAN 42 and VLAN 42 SVI. Nick says, my problem is I'm gaining book knowledge but lacking practical experience. Is this what being a lead manager feels like? I don't know. I'm neither of those right now. I'm just your typical engineer. Nick says, how do you check those rollbacks to see what you are rolling back? So right here, you can view rollback changes, and then you could, All right, so hold on. Let's start over here. Show configuration rollback changes. So this shows what you would do to roll back the change here. And you're asking to check, how do you check those rollbacks to see what you are rolling back? I'm sure there's a way we can view previous configuration, like something like configuration that went through, right? I'm assuming like you're thinking about like looking at from the actual configuration. But if you're asking about, yeah, like Angel says, rollback configuration without commit, that's what I just did here. So you do the commit dry run out format native. So this would basically spit out every device and what exactly is rolling back. So you see the name of the device here, and then the data is right here is what it's actually sending to the device. No VLAN 42, no interface VLAN 42. And then the commit, obviously, it actually performs it. All right. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to finish through this lab. Taking a look at the stream, we're about an hour and a half in. I plan to go longer than my normal, hour and a half, 2 hours. So, I definitely appreciate if you can stick around, but just want to let you know, we're definitely going through the rest of the lab. I don't want to cut it off halfway, especially since we have the sandbox reservation. Nick says, like I see the IDs to the side there. How can you see the content of that? How does that make sense? Or does that make sense? Yes, it does make sense. Let me do... Maybe let's do show configuration. That's a good question though, because what you're asking is like view the configuration that changed during a particular configuration, or like a transaction, I guess. Let's keep looking for it. Because I want to get through these steps, but I'll kind of keep an eye out for it. All right, so we looked at managing the configuration per device, but what if you want to configure something on many devices? There's several ways to do it with multi-device configuration, but the simplest way is to use device templates. Start out with the NCS. Yeah, we're already there. We're already in config. So now we're going to do a devices template set DNS server. Okay, so take back what I said. I think I mentioned, oh, let's just create VLAN 42 on every device by doing like config devices with a star. Yeah, that's probably not best. Sounds like we probably want to do a device template. All right, so we're going to set the device, and looks like, wonder if you can set multiple net IDs. We'll do NX. There you go. Interesting. Okay. So we have the NED, and then we go to config, IP name servers. Actually, I'm just gonna copy and paste it just so I don't mess up the config. Cause this is just straight, yeah. So we're gonna go to top, show configuration. Okay. So we're basically saying, let's see. NSO takes the input of two different name servers, combines them into a list object within the CDB. So we're saying any devices that attach to this template will use this specific NED, Cisco Nexus CLI, and it will configure this IP name servers, these two that are in this list. Okay, so Nick's asking, show run config rollback with an ID or show config. Sorry, long delay. No, it's no problem. I think on average, I actually was trying to time this the other day because you brought it up. I think it's about a 12 to 15 second delay. And on top of it, I don't see the messages right away either because I'm either reading or doing something on screen. So, yeah, there is kind of that weird like 20-second delay. So I apologize. Be nice to see a delimiter between those DNS servers like a comma. Yeah, for real, right? But yeah, let me try out your commands real quick. Running I'm in config mode. I'll have to check them out after I do this change here. Looks like I'm gonna do a dry run because I don't like just committing right away. Okay, so it just adds it. So commit doesn't actually, like, when you run commit, it doesn't mean like, okay, configure the network devices. It just means save the changes to NSO. So we just created a device template and we're just saving the changes. Even though the template is saved into NSO CDB, you must commit before applying to any devices. Okay, makes sense. This version of your template only addresses Nexus devices based on the net ID block. You can add other devices in a moment, but first you should test this version. Now let's test out the version. Do show. Oh, great, we got the do back. The do enables you to go to, yeah, got it. The issue, the following commands. I was just saying, just to verify what net ID does a specific device use. So we're going to do devices, device, dist, switch 01, apply template name, set DNS server. Now review the change, show config. All right, so this is just applying it to this device. Looks good, but you aren't done yet. Unstage these changes with the revert at the prompt and enter yes. Okay, so I was actually wondering this myself. Like, I was like, how do you unstage changes? So it looks like you use revert. Yes. Now if we do show config, no config found. Cool. But now let's update it to support iOS and ASAs. Okay. Oops, I'm already in here. Devices, template, set DNS server. Let's just do net ID. Okay, so you have to, when you create a template, you have to make the configuration per NED, which kind of makes sense. But kind of like, I mean, because now I'm like into that same pickle of, okay, I'm just configuring per network device, right? So I'm still managing the CLI in a way, right? With the templates. That's just my thought. Maybe I'm like thinking too hard about it, but I mean, I'm going in now to every NED and getting very specific to the CLI. But I guess at the end of the day, like, you kind of have to, if we're using the CLI NED. If we're using netconf, we can just use the Yang model and go from there, but we're not. All right. We'll just go to exit, and now we're back here. I'm doing line by line, by the way. 1, so I can read it. 2, for whatever reason, I'm having issues with copy and paste. All right. Config, exit. Now your template knows how to configure on all 4 DNS or on all 4 network types. Since NSO is aware of each device type, it automatically applies the correct template syntax to the device. Save the changes with commit. Okay. Commit. I'm going to do dry run again because I want to see what changes. Let's see. Oh, I missed a couple here. Angel says, if you change something through the CLI, would NSO detect the change or not try that yet? Yeah, so that's where that sync from and sync to is. If you do a sync from, I haven't actually seen like where it says, oh, hey, like there was a manual out of band change. But I know if you do sync from, it gets whatever's on the network device and pulls it into NSO. But I don't know if it alerts you or anything. William George says, kind of bummer that it's not translating between CLI formats. Yeah. Maybe their use of the word template means there will be more sophisticated options later on. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of reading it from... I kind of like talk myself out of to the ledge and then talk myself off of it. So because we're using, remember... this is actually kind of a good visual. We're using the CLI NED for each of these different types. You have to use the CLI, right? That's how it's communicating with the device. It's not using netconf, restconf, an API or anything like that. So it has to understand, like, you have to be able to get as granular as you want with the commands, and because it overall is just punching this into the CLI. Nick says, so switch CLI doesn't work here, or mean between XML or JSON? So switch CLI doesn't work here. I don't think so. I haven't tried that. Or, going between XML or JSON. Don't think so. No, I mean, it seems like you go into each NED. You create the template, you create a NED using a NED ID, and then you configure under the NED what specific, CLI command you want. Yeah. Nick says, never mind, I think I understand. Okay. Yeah, I apologize. I'm just trying to get what you're saying. Now your template knows how to configure the DNS servers on all 4 types. Since, okay, I already did that. Okay, so this is the dry run. So you'll see we're creating a new template and we're adding ASA CLI, the IOSXR, and then iOS. And these are the particular commands that we're doing. So I will commit them. Remember, that just saves the template. That doesn't actually apply it to the network yet. So now use the device groups to apply it to the entire network. Oh, and let's just do a show configuration. Never mind. We're not going to do that yet. I thought that was going to show something. So we're going to apply a template name, set DNS server. Okay, one simple command. You've updated every device all at once in the CDB. That's automation. That's automation. Look at that. Just all caps, baby. Now you can review the configuration that is ready for NSO to send the devices. Here we go. So now we can do, well, let's see. Can I do show configuration yet? To be honest, I know it says to do the dry run out format native. I personally like doing the running show configuration and viewing the differences because you can see what exactly, for this device, the config is going to be this. For this device. And that's actually kind of a good point. And I'm kind of like connecting the dots as I'm going through. So obviously every device is tied to a NED, but So you only have to update for a template. You only have to update the NED, or configure that per the NED. And then once you declare, okay, this is the configuration that's going to be tied to this NED, it automatically, no matter if you have 100 iOS devices and 100 ASA firewalls, it knows what to write to those devices, and it gives you the granularity to write the CLI command. So I think it's kind of strikes a good balance between automation and like traditional network engineers being able to log in using a CLI and configure all this by hand if they want, right? Or like the specific commands, not per device, but the specific commands they want to apply to every device, you can do it here. So it's kind of neat. Automation rollout. That's right, Nick. All right. What was I doing? Oh, this was just showing the difference in what's going to be added. We'll do another dry run just to see, just for a little practice. All right, yeah, so same thing. All right, so let's just do a commit. All right, so now with this commit, it's going out and it's actually pushing the configuration to all the devices. And just like that, we're done. Look at that. Imagine if it was that easy to set a new DNS server across your network, a network of 10 devices. Be cool stuff. Now, obviously, I'm being sarcastic. I mean, it is very cool. I was being sarcastic about the 10 devices. I mean, if you scale this up to 100, I almost guarantee it would finish in time, in a good amount of time. This section provides a quick introduction to templates. Templates have many other uses and features, and we'll check them out later. All right, now we're going to check out the operational state. Before I do that, Nick asked, is there a GUI for NSO? You can do the same thing on getting practice with both, or good question. So I actually had the GUI up. Why is that? Go back there. Where's this? Oh, I guess the lab timed out. The GUI is, yes, right here. 1010. Oh wait, that's the dev box. Or no, 1010 2049. Oh, I'll get rid of this. We don't need this. 10 10 20 49. Yeah, so it does have a GUI. Personally, and maybe this, because I've added things to it since, it might look a little better now. But when I first was, before stream, I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know if I want to touch this. But we'll log in. What did we say? Configuration editor. Okay. Commit manager. Maybe what I'll do is I'll look at this commit manager whenever I'm ready to push some more changes. You see my user session is here, so that's cool. All these devices weren't here before, so that's kind of neat. Before I logged in, actually no, never mind. This is the production NSO. So I remember I'm using a local install, and local install I don't think has this. But to answer your initial question, is there an API, or I'm sorry, a GUI? Yes, there is. I just don't have too much. It's kind of basic. So, no, I figure I'm gonna probably try to get good with the CLI and then kind of roll from there. Maybe dive into the API a little bit, but I'm not worried about using the GUI too much. Okay. Device operational state. Steps away from the device config. Much of, especially with lifecycle projects, gathers details about the current state of your network for visibility and troubleshooting. Along with modeling device configuration, NEDs include the ability to read current operational state from the network, similar to running show commands. Perfect. All right, so I'm in config. I don't think I need to be in config though. Yeah, I don't. So we'll exit out of that. We'll do show devices, device, dist, switch 01, palat. Wait, didn't I use this command? Oh no, I did it against an iOS device. I think this is the Nexus. Yeah, Nexus 9K. Wait. Oh, because I was trying to do it against config. So Nick, whenever you're asking about the platform, this is, yeah. So I was trying to do config platform when it just needed platform. So, okay, cool. If you only want the serial number, then you can do that and then do serial number. Cool. And then you can use a wildcard to receive all the serial numbers from all your devices. Okay. Device platforms. Wow, they even have a nice little pretty table for you. Ooh. All right. In this case, the actual serial number is for the virtual iOS XR is NA. Okay. Now retrieve the platform version for all the devices. Okay. So this is going to tell us the different iOS versions running on every device. You know, this kind of reminds me of. This kind of reminds me of. Speaking of, Nick was brought up databases. This is kind of what it reminds me of, right? Like select devices, select device, or select star from device table. Like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of just reminds me of that. So, show version to see firmware. Let's take a look. So remember. Oh, no. I mean, that's cool. I didn't realize I accidentally did that. I think because these are all virtual devices, I don't know if firmware's in there. Oh, where was that initial printout? The only thing we have for platform is name, version, model. I guess I could try firmware. Nah. Yeah, probably just because they're all virtual, but I mean, the version's kind of sweet. That's like actually pretty sick. Actually, I don't know why I keep doing this or why I like doing this, but let's display as JSON. Oh, that's money right there. Imagine just parsing through it. Get this JSON data back. And it's real easy. You can just iterate through every single object and look for, you know, name and version. Perfect. Okay. Anyways, live status. Devices have a live status part of the model that indicates it reads from the device at the time of execution rather than pulling from the CDB. Check on the current status of the port channels on a device. Okay. So live status, basically, instead of reading from the CDB, this is pulling from the device. Where's my terminal? There we go. Show devices, device. And I'm trying to do this like, you're probably like, okay, how's he reading this stuff? Some of it I'm reading, some of it I'm not. I'm trying to get a better understanding. I'm trying to, like, you know, get a better idea of how this is framed without reading word for word. So like, obviously I have this part down. Show devices, device, and then the host name. It's, you know, whatever goes after it, I gotta figure out. Show live status. Okay, so let's see what's available with live status. Okay, so for this particular device, it looks like we have BGP, some layer 2, VLAN, VTP, system. Okay, so let's see what system is all about. Okay, maybe not. Let's see if BGP is running. No. I guess port channels it is. We'll just stick with port channels. Port channel, there we go. So live status, basically using this will actually log into the device and pull it instead of just whatever it has in its CDB copy. Oh, IP route. Let's do that one. IP, and let's see what's available. Oh, it's just route. Oh, snap. So this prints out like the routing table. Path. Attached. Okay, now let's see if this displays in JSON, because you already know I look at this as like, okay, this data is nice and like for me to read, but like, is there a way to serialize it to where if I need to get it off of NSO, then let's look at that step. And you can. I mean, it's super easy. You go to the VRF. So obviously VRF's a list. We find the default VRF and then the prefixes that fall within the default VRF. And you got the prefix, and then all the metrics and interface names down here. So, licenses. Oh, that's a good one, Nick. That's a good one. Let me see. Let's see what Yang library is. Okay, so Yang library, I guess it queries to see data store. So it shows all the data stores running, intended, and operational. Let's do schema. To be honest, I have no idea about Yang libraries. Licenses, I'll keep my eye out. I didn't see it in that list. All right, there's too much information through live status. Feel free. Oh, there's too much. There is much information available through live status. Yeah. NSO is great, but occasionally the NED may support specific configuration segment or operational data that you need. When something is missing from a NED, you can open a support ticket and the team can update NEDs. Yeah, so that goes back to the whole system install. You can have Cisco support update your NED or, add on to it, create a new one. It often only take a few days for vetting, testing, and implementing by Cisco. Oh, that's neat. So only a couple days you'll have your new NED. Once you become familiar with more advanced topics around NSO development, you can build your own packages. So that's something I need to do. I need to learn how to build some module, or at least be able to, read through it. And that's another thing I'll kind of add to the list. So once I get this up and running in my local environment, I'll figure out how to kind of build the modules and do the development side of the house. However, for immediate needs, live status supports sending arbitrary commands to a network device and returning the result. Okay. Suppose you must check... Were you reading ahead, Nick? Suppose you must check for license usage on your Nexus switches. This isn't data that NED currently supports for parsing, but you can use live status to gather it. Okay. Then let's do this. So let's check it on the distribution switch. Distribution switch 01. Live status, and we're gonna go exec. Weird. It said you can use exec, right? Yeah. Exec show license usage. I have to remember it's not technically like unknown argument. Show devices. Oh, it's not even show. It's just devices. There you go. Nick says, I haven't read it ahead, I swear. Well, there you go. There you go. Looks like you can. Nah, that ain't it. All right, so you can get the pretty printout. So basically like what you would on a normal CLI, but you can't display it in JSON, probably because it's not technically, it's not supported by the net officially, but you kind of get the point. Now find the contents of the boot flash using the exec any command to run any command. Oh, okay. I was like, why any? Because, with boot flash, you just run dir. You don't have to run a show. So we'll do devices, device, distribution switch 01, exec any dir. Uh-oh. What did I forget? Oh, live status. Live status. Okay. So, yeah. So it does the same thing as you'd expect. Now, use a wildcard to run against all the leaf switches. The wildcard uses dist star to issue to all the dist switches. Okay. They're daring me to. Dist star live status exec show license usage. Here we go. Looky there. So it looks like we have, this is for distribution router 01, 02. There's no licenses in use. Router 2, or no, that's the end of it. That's the last prompt. This is switch 1 is showing all the licenses, and then switch 2, this is showing all the licenses there. So I just ran across a show command across 4 devices. That's pretty awesome. Often you need to gather data like this for later processing or share with someone. It enables you to save that output. All right. So let's save that output. Save home developer. Nexus license usage. Nexus license usage.txt. So basically, instead of printing it to your standard output, it's saving to this file. And then if we go back here, let me see if I can we'll close it. We'll open up a new one. All right, and there it is. Nexus license usage. I just did a cat, and you can see it saved it all. That's pretty handy, and it's just a simple filter. That's pretty awesome. You can't use live status with device groups because a group of devices could leverage different NEDs. So NEDs is like that common point. That's what it looks like. If you have multiple devices sharing different NEDs, you're kind of gotta, figure it out at that point. All right, compliance. All right, so we're gonna go through this. Just a quick time check. We're about 2 hours into the stream. I'm gonna try to have this knocked out in the next half hour or so. So anyone still with me here? Nick, William, Angel, all you guys, anyone else that's watching, really appreciate you being here. Any questions? Obviously you guys are definitely not scared to chat, so put anything you want in the chat. I'm here, till we knock this out, but it looks like we only have a couple more tabs, so. Nick asks, I don't recall, but did that telemetry encryption config I showed you certificates help you out at all, or no? It did, Nick. I really appreciate it. It did. I tried testing it. I never got it to actually functionally work. But I figured out that it looks like Nexus is the only one that actually supports telemetry encryption using a certificate. The rest of it, it looks like gRPC using TLS is not supported with iOS XE. It's actually in their documentation. And then with netconf dial-in, you can obviously use your SSH keys for encryption. So, but yeah, Nick, that link definitely helped. All right, configuration compliance. Network engineers, team leadership often want an easy way to verify compliance. This requirement can be for internal reasons or to support an audit. Whatever the reason, compliance verification can be challenging, time-consuming. Okay, so we'll ensure DNS servers, syslog server configuration, NTP. You can extend this technique, obviously, to any aspect. You can use the following NSO features in this section. Device templates and compliance reports. Okay. This use case has two parts. Building a device template that contains the desired configuration, and then building a compliance report to check that configuration. Okay. Create the device template with the desired. You use the commands in the following code block. We'll just get down to here. We'll copy that. Just because we've already kind of did this. Jump back into config mode, and then I feel like none of that actually worked. Yeah, that did not work. The CLI, okay, so that's there. Okay. It looks like it might have broke right here. It wasn't quick enough. Okay. And then we'll do service timestamps. And then logging host. Okay, so we're basically putting all of the information into one specific, into one template. Got it. Exit, exit. Okay. So now we're at this one here. Paste anyway. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably these IP name server because it looks like it's lagging a little bit coming in. Okay. Alright, there's that. Exit and NTP. Just so everyone's kind of aware as I'm going through this. Basically all you're doing, and it'll be easier to view once it's all together, but we're basically going into each NED, and just like before, we're creating a template with few different NEDs involved. Nexus, iOS, ASA, and then we're putting the specific configuration required for that particular platform. So like here, ASA, to put in a IP name server, you know, like you would for iOS, it's different in ASA, which you can see by these DNS configuration. All right, so you see, now we just need logging, and I'm doing this one by one because it looks like my terminal is kind of getting caught up when I do a big copy paste. But This is a good point as I'm going through this. It's a good thing to point out here that once I do this, it'll be saved in a template and applied to the different devices that kind of belong to these different NEDs or attached to these different NEDs. So kind of a good point. You can create templates from existing device by copying the CLI config. And I mean, even better, you can create a template based on some running config. Here we go. This is what I wanted to kind of, I feel like this is like a better image. So we created a device template, right, called compliance check. Within that device template, we have these different NEDs. Okay. These NEDs then obviously belong to the different devices and the different OS types. So ASA, this is all the CLI that belongs to the ASA. NXOS is right here, and then iOS is this bottom piece here. All right. So commit the new template. Committing it, remember, just puts it into, saves it to NSO, not necessarily pushes it out to the devices. Compliance reports simply compare a given template to a group of devices. So the configuration is simple. Be aware of the following features of compliance reports. Results can come in HTML, Bash, or XML format. XML is the default. Because the results are very likely very verbose, NSO saves the results to a file located in state compliance reports. NSO runs a web server so that these reports are available by navigating to the given URL. That's nice, because compliance reports can be pretty intense. So we're gonna actually go to compliance reports. Actually, I'm kind of curious if I get out of config. Yeah. Okay. Reports. Report. Oh, I'm configuring it, so that's why it needs to be in config mode. Report compliance check. Okay. Compare template compliance check all. Okay, so we're taking that template and we're comparing it to that all device group. And just to verify that that's, yeah, report on a specific device group. So that's what we're doing. Commit, end. All right. So everything you need is ready for you to test the network for compliance. From the enable mode, run the compliance report using compliance reports, report compliance check. Is that it? Oh, run. Okay. William says URLs would be great for handing off to people for sure. Yes, 100% agree with you, William. Hey, Blues. Blues is here. Blues Colonel. How you doing, Blues? All right. So let's take a look. So I'm gonna copy actually the last piece here, because it's gonna be running on HTTP 10, 20, 50, port 80. Oops. Shoot. Oh, wait, what? Okay. Well, I thought it would be this easy. I don't think this will work though, that's the thing. 10, 10, 20, 50. Yeah, so if it's trying to run here, all right, I'll just copy this and we'll do 10, 10, 20, 50 because it's running on the local host of the dev box, which is that IP. It's forced me to log in here. Oh, it already exited that too. I don't really need that back open. Oh, here we go. This is what I was looking for. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was using. Oh, I wonder if it's admin. But I don't think I set a password though. That's the thing. When it fails, just admin, admin. Okay. Now where was that? Oh, it's in my terminal. I'm sure there's a way to like navigate to this, but you know how it be. Let's go, boom. Oh, a really ugly looking XML document. Perfect. That's what I wanted. All right. I was really hoping that that was gonna be like more nicely formatted. Is this really it? Okay. Man, this stinks. I thought it was gonna be like a nice picture. Doesn't have like diagrams and all that stuff. Oh, it did. I mean, it did say XML was the default. And how about this? Let's just keep going through. There we go. So yeah, by default it did XML. Compliance report out format. Okay, so we'll do HTML. What the heck? Why does it do that? Compliance reports. Ahaha. Let's try this. Okay, a little nicer. Blues says admin, is this the sandbox with HTML? So Blues, just to kind of fill you in, yeah, we're taking a look at Cisco NSO, and I'm using the reservable sandbox in DevNet, not the always on one. So yeah, we're taking a look at that. We created a compliance report. So it looks like it just kind of does a diff. Which I guess it works. I mean, to me, a compliance report, right, is, okay, the template discrepancies I get, but like, to me, I feel like there should be just a little more like color and visuals to me, like with HTML especially. Like you could create some graphs and be like, I mean, these diffs are really nice to have. I'm not saying anything wrong with them, but like, I just feel like there could be a little more. Okay. With your preferred text editor, open the state compliance report. Okay. So let's go to NSO instance, state I don't need oh, I didn't out format the oops. Keep doing that. Out format to text. Okay, so now it should be there. Yeah, so now we'll cat this. Okay, so like this is fine. This is good to me. Like, because this gives you the detail that, you know, an engineer or, you know, an operations team would need to say, okay, well, what was changed, right? So, but like HTML, I feel like you kind of got to do a little more, but it's okay. So you kind of can see all the devices. You can find the device the comparison appears with a diff format where lines with a plus indicate missing config. If NSO detects config that are on devices that should not be there, you use a minus. Okay, so that's nicer. Okay, so plus means it's missing, minus means it's there and shouldn't be. So we can see that all this is missing. Looks like logging is missing on this router. The switch is missing. I mean, it's all missing, which makes sense because we haven't pushed a template. Even though NSO evaluates different CLI types, NSO standardizes the native configuration into a uniform data model in Junos curly bracket style. Okay, who said that in the chat? I think it was William, because you said like Juniper-y, and I really like that. I'm going through the chat right now. Hold on. Kind of yeah, you said William George said kind of XR-ish maybe. I assume it's not supposed to be Juniper-y. Looks like it is Juniper-y. So William, you are right. Even though NSO evaluates to different, it standardizes the native configuration into a uniform data model in Juno's curly bracket style. Okay, so yeah, so that's what that is. Open up the XML and HTML. Yeah, we did that. All right, resolving compliance issues. This should be interesting. So now we go to config. And devices, device group, all apply template. We did this earlier. Template name, and then I think we're gonna do it. It's just the compliance check template, right? Yeah. So all that configuration that was missing. So everything with the plus here that it's saying, hey, it's not available or it's not configured yet. We're applying it now. No matching Ned found for, oh, interesting. That's interesting. I don't know how that changed, but all right. So we can see what's going to change here using the dry run. Using that curly brace format, the Juniper-y format. I like that. I'm going to use that. All right, so let's just commit the changes. So now it's configuring, you know, NTP, logging, what was it, DNS servers, timestamps, all that stuff on all the devices, and it's done. Nick says, can you hop or search for strings inside the text with cat like you did with less, or like you can with less? I think you can, yeah. You can do like a grep. So yeah, you can do like a grep. Blues Kernel says you can omit the C when you log into NSOs, and it will NSO CLI, and it will give you a Junos like CLI. Yeah, we were looking at that like back in like step 1 or 2. Yeah, we got a good laugh out of that. Okay, so we're going back and we're gonna configure We don't need to be in config mode anymore. We're gonna run the compliance checks again, because at this point, out format text. All right, so now we're good there. So now we're gonna do this report here, last report. No discrepancies, baby. Let's go. All right, so because we applied the template everywhere for the compliance check that we're checking against, we're good to go now. We're 100% done. No violations. Now you have a no violations, good shape, and it generates a report for you. And yep, no diffs found, no discrepancies found. Perfect. And this is that text format, so. All right. So now here, oh yeah, this is gonna be an interesting one. Creating NSO services. All right, so let's try to knock this one out pretty quickly here. The S in NSO stands for services. NSO services create instances of services to deploy on your network. You define an arbitrary set of configuration templates and a set of configuration or variables to plug into these templates. A service instance could be a customer, a tenant, site ID, or anything you want. So, yeah, I was just going to try to explain it, but it looks like this is a pretty good way of explaining it. So basically, a service is a bunch of configuration templates that have variables in them, or a collection of variable or templates that you can plug in variables into, and then you could deploy the quote-unquote service out to, any set of devices. So internally, it maintains mapping between inputs and outputs. So you have a Yang model, some logic, the template, and then metadata. Hold on. Let me just check something. I'll run through this. Okay, so I know for a fact, let me, because this is definitely, I think this is part of the exam topics. I don't want to spend too much time on it tonight, just because we're, almost 2.5 hours in. But I do want to finish the lab. So I might go through this pretty quickly, but I'm definitely going to revisit it over the weekend as well. So I don't want you guys to think just because I'm going through it quickly means I don't think it's important. It's just we're getting deep into the stream. Okay, so create a basic NSO package, service package, using the Cisco iOS CLI NED and Python and template type. Create a service template, create a basic Yang module for the service containers, and create basic actions to verify operational state and monitor the service. Okay. So it sounds like it definitely will be in there for sure. All right, so creating a service package. Hey, this is exactly what was on the exam topics. NSO uses a built-in package management to handle NEDs, custom packages such as service packages. Service packages are a collection of structure files and folders that NSO loads in to the application. Built-in bash CLI tool called NCS make package auto-generates a skeleton structure of files and folders for creating a package. Perfect. So we're going to go into packages. Yeah, packages. So we're in the NSO instance still. So we're going to do NSO or NCS mask make package -h. So this is help. So we just want the service skeleton, I think is what I saw. Yeah, service skeleton, and then the type, and then the package name. So we just want service skeleton service skeleton template. So that's the type. And then loopback service. All right. Marcos asks, how many hours do you study a day? So a lot of times during the week, obviously like life can get in the way, but most of the time 2 hours. Most of the time 2 hours. So 2 hours a night. And then on weekends, I try to aim for about 4 hours Saturday, 4 hours Sunday, so 8 hours over the weekend. And I would say that's probably light compared to what I've read about other CCIE studies. I just think the difference being is I've been doing this, like I've been doing it for a while, and on top of it, I don't know like how else to relate it, but like I don't want to say like I've been doing it a while, like I'm a vet or anything like that. But like I'm involved with this stuff every day. Like if I'm not reading something about it, I'm labbing something up with it. So it's not like I was like, oh yeah, I want to do a bunch of DevNet stuff now, and like that's just to check a box. I'm like in this, like this is my thing. So yeah, so not to like hardcore studying like after an exam objective, I would say about 2 hours a night on weekdays, and I try to get at least 4 hours per weekend day. But it's not to say that I like close the lab up and I'm like, yep, that was it. I definitely am spending time reading that Yang book I mentioned earlier in the stream, and watching YouTube videos about past Cisco lives. Like I'm doing other things as well. It's just, to me, I see that more as like a kind of just gathering knowledge at that point. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, Marcos. Okay, so we got our loopback service, and we want to do a tree now because I think it's installed. Yeah, so it's a directory, and this is what it looks like. So if we do tree, it kind of shows you the directory here. And so you have loopback service.yang, and then the template itself in XML. And let's see what this stuff means. So the key files that you'll be editing, I'm just going to minimize it. The key files you'll be editing are loopback service.yang and that templates.xml, the one that both of the files I just mentioned. Services can also have coding logic, but in the simple example, you're going to use basic features. So this is only using templates, and that's something to point out because you can see for the exam, they're expecting you to do Python and template as a type. So that's something I'm gonna have to work on separately. But for now, we'll take a look at the templates. So let's view the contents of the Yank file and the XML. So the Yank file output, let's see, yeah. So it's just a skeleton file. I guess there's really not much to say. And then the actual config. So add device parameters here. In the skeleton, the service has a leaf dummy. Use that to put something on the device. IP address on device dummy. Service package details. The files created have some details already as a suggestion. The Yang file has a list, loopback service, to track all the service instances. More on the topic later. Within the service definition, there are a few variable names. Name, device, dummy. Name variable is a service instance unique key lookup. Device is a dynamic variable for a device. And then dummy variable is a sample input to use in the device template. The XML file. So that basically just gives you it's for your service instances. The XML file is the configuration that NSO uses to apply to your network devices. So this is more or less like your config template, is this XML file. You plug in the variable names from your Yang file into here for a dynamic configuration. And then you can have multiple Yang files, and with some extra Python or Java code logic. The important part of the XML file, which you use, is between the tags config, just between config, which right now has an XML comment. So let's see. All right, so you can see here between config, that's where the meat of this is supposed to be. Obviously, it's one big comment right now, but I imagine we're gonna fill that in here in just a second. NSO uses Yang to define the variable names and constraints on those variables. Okay, so they're basically using it as like a data model in a way to say, hey, you can only use this sort of data type, and for these variables, this can be confusing, as many people often associate Yang with netconf or restconf. NSO uses Yang to model the data, input into the service. Okay. And it uses XML behind the scenes to represent every device's configuration. If you're not familiar with XML, don't worry. You can display native configuration in XML using NCS CLI, which you can copy and paste. Okay, let's start developing our service package. Just open the NSO CLI. Done. So we're going to configure. Let's get the iOS configuration from first. Create a loopback, but do not commit. Okay. Oops. Here we go. So we're gonna go to devices, device, dis router. Loopback 100. Okay. And if we just exit, probably could have I should just did top. Show config. So we can see that we just created a new interface loopback 100 and commit dry run out format XML. Cool. Okay. So now that let's see. Now that you have the XML output, you just want to copy and paste it sits between the config tags. So it's kind of like, I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I hate using the word cheating, but like where you do something with restconf, netconf, like do a get, so that way you can use it in a like an additional put or post. Yeah, so that's kind of what we just did there. We configured it on the device, and then we said, okay, well, what's this actually look like? Outside NSO in a text editor, edit that file and add the XML snippet. Okay. Alrighty. Let's go to Nano, loopback services, templates, loopback. So we're just gonna plug this in here. I don't mess around with Nano enough to where I can just select everything, but yeah, that's what I needed to do there. Paste. Okay, that's ugly, but it will do. Control, yes, save. Oh wait. Now add the IP address variable dummy into the configuration template, replacing the existing address. Okay, well, time to go back here. And So I think I read that they use the word secret instead of dummy in the official packages. Don't know if that's true. Okay. Let's save. Save the XML, exit the NSO configuration session, discarding. Oh, that's cool. No. Okay. So we configure in your bash terminal, navigate to source or loopback service and make src. So there's a make file in here. Oh yeah, there is. Let's see what's in it. That's cool. Now that you have updated the XML and compiled Yang model, you can load in the new service package. Go back to the NSO CLI and issue the following commands. Packages reload. Okay. And here, sorry about that. Okay, so now we're just doing packages reload, which I guess will, there's a net update or a new service package. They'll migrate all the data models. Perfect. All right, we are at the last session here. We are almost done. Nick says, Vim could have deleted whole lines with DD and saved you some time. Yeah, I know. Hey, I'm not one to fight with the text editors. Nano's just made sense to me, and that's the one I started with. I've tried Vim in the past. It just doesn't click for me. All right. So packages reload. We're good now. Maybe. Wait, I'm waiting for the terminal to come back. With the service package loaded now, you can start creating service instances. All right, so just like NSO instances, where they're like the Python virtual environments. We now have NSO service instances. These instances can take custom inputs based on a Yang model and config template you defined. I will be reviewing this again, for sure. There's just a lot to take in here, and it's at the very end of all of this. And like I said, I've kind of knew up to how to set it up, but then everything we've gone through, basically 3 through 10 today or tonight, has been all mostly new. So, so William asks, so wait, you're running the make file on the NCS server itself, or is it on your terminal? Okay, so I guess I probably should explain this better. I'm in the NCS server here on the blue tab. I didn't really mark this tab, and I'm gonna do that now. So we're gonna make it nice and yellow. So the yellow tab here is just a bash shell. So this local install of NSO is on this dev box. And yeah, and the dev box, I'm on the bash shell here, and you can see I'm just in my home, the developer folder. And so I'm kind of just navigating the files in this one, and then the blue one, I'm in the actual, call it the NSO shell, right? So Nick says, Vim, it's definitely something you need to practice. You need practice with to get used to. Yeah, totally agree. And I'm not saying anything bad about Vim, because I've seen people that fly around on Vim. I'm almost jealous. So I just need to put some time in with it. Blue says the NCS server itself, probably answering William's question. Yeah, so it's on the same server, but I guess when you're asking about the NCS server, okay, I get what you're saying. Blues is right. So I'm SSH, and you can maybe see at the top here, I'm SSH to the dev box, which is the server, the Linux VM running the NCS server. All right, so we designed the Yang model that manages the server instances, the service instances, and then the XML templates that manage the config. Then we instantiate the service into different instances with different input parameters from, based on the device. Okay. I get it. I actually kind of get it. Enter config mode and then use the question mark to discover the new CLI option. Okay. Okay, so this is where this comes into effect. So we got loopback service. It's considered a package. This is the service name, or the service instance name we're calling test. We're going to say device distribution router 01 dummy 192.168.7. No, it's 1, not a 7, right? Yeah. Play around with the available options. Okay, hold on. I skipped this part. Use the new command to create a new service instance called test and populate the variables device with distribution router 01 and dummy with an IP address. That makes sense because if we go back to our file here, hold on. I like this view. Here we go. So let's do a quick cat on loopback service. All right, so, well, this is generated from the template. No. Yeah. Let's go to the template first. Which is templates, loopback, loopback. All right, so if you remember, we have a dummy variable here in address, and we have a device variable here, right? So what we're doing is saying, okay, we're instantiating the service, we're creating an instance of it, we're naming it test, and we're just basically filling out the variable names with values. That's it. William said, that's nuts, honestly, but totally, but sure makes sense. It is nuts. Blue says, when you compile the package, it will create a star fxs file inside the service package. Okay, I haven't got that far yet, Blues, but I'll definitely take a look here soon. But this is kind of neat though. Creating the service is defined. We create a new service instance of it. I kind of picture it as like, with a Python class where you create a class and then you create objects or instances of the object, right? Or instances of the class, I should say. This is your class, right? Class name is test, and then these are your attributes, right? Device and dummy are the attributes, and then these are the values for the attributes. That's a way to look at it, I think. Play around with the question mark. Also note that since NSO knows the data types for the variables from the Yang model, it suggests what type of input to give. Okay, yeah, I mean, that's 100% true, because if you look back at the Yang model here, you can see that the leaf dummy, which describes the XML document, or the variable in the XML template, it's a type INET IPv4 address, which is true. NSO also validates that the input conforms to these data types. Since you link the device variable to the CDB, NSO auto-suggests from question the list of devices. Okay. All right. So we're going to go top, commit, dry run, out format, native. So this should just say, yeah, we're applying a new loopback to just that one device, which we are. Show configuration, okay. So that's the funny. So show configuration, this hasn't really this to me it hasn't changed that much until now, where it's showing the list of devices that were applied to using this specific service. Whereas if you do out format native, it tells you using that Juniper-y. I'm telling you what, William, you saying Juniper-y tonight, I will remember that on the test day. Whenever I'm in that lab and I'm looking through this NSO config and I do output native or out format native, I'm gonna think of you. I'm gonna think of what you said with Juniper-y. But yeah, the curly brace format that Juniper has, it's a little easier to read. All right, so now we're gonna commit. And so this will basically create a loopback on this distribution router 01. Uh-oh, I didn't want to expand it. NSO only saves the service inputs and then automatically renders and applies the configuration templates. Okay, that's cool. Let's see. Nick says, kind of like an Ansible vars file with Jinja 2. Exactly. That's exactly the way I pictured as well, Nick. All right, redeploying a service. Let's assume that someone goes into your network and makes a change. That change is out of band. Okay. I forget who asked it. I think it was you, Nick. Might have been Angel. I don't know if I haven't seen him in the chat in a minute, so I don't know if he's still here, but about making out-of-band changes. So, all right, so someone goes in, makes an out-of-band change that NSO is unaware of and conflicts with your service. What do you do? XNSO, go back to the bash terminal, open a telnet session to distribution router 1, issue a show run. Okay. So we'll just telnet here. Very safe and secure. Oh, I don't even have telnet on with Windows. I think I can do. Oh, I gotta start up an Ubuntu server though. I just have to read through this one. I don't have telnet on the Windows. PowerShell doesn't have telnet, and I think Mac as well. Like this, you can't use telnet. But anyways, verify that the credentials are in the lab guide. While in the telnet session, issue the following commands. So you basically delete the interface, re-enter the NSO, re-enter the NSO CLI, and NSO's understanding of the device is unaware of the change yet. The loopback is still present in the CDB. Okay, so here's a conflict. That's basically where we're going with this. Preview and execute sync from so the NSO can relay. So that's, I was hoping that there's gonna be some sort of like alert that was like, hey, out of sync. It's not, you know. Enter the config mode and view a dry run of the service being redeployed to see what that the loopback is added again, then redeploy it. I mean, I'll run that. I can run that for sure. Loopback service. Does it call on the, yeah, test. Redeploy. Or redeploy. Dry run. Oh, that's just saying, yeah, there's nothing to do because we haven't affected it. It tracks what the config should be on the device, so once it learns the device is out of sync, it can easily redeploy the service configuration. Okay, so yeah, it just redeploys it. Basically just reconfigures. Exit telnet back in and verify the loopback should be there. Okay. Services often include lots of extra logic, including Java and Python code. Assurance, verification actions to make sure that the configuration had the intended effect on the network. Automatically provisioning IP addresses from a pool. Configuration across multiple devices and device types in a single server instance. This, I think, will be key on the exam. Doing multiple devices and device types in a single service instance. And then API integrations with other applications such as service catalogs or workflow engines. And I think this will also be super key. There are many other options related to NSO's APIs and services. Every feature within NSO is exposed over every API, so you can automate any NSO capability. So basically, this last sentence is saying every feature within NSO is exposed over every API. So that's telling me that it's full feature parity with its API. You can do anything you can do in NSO, you can also perform against its API. So that's pretty cool. It's like a full feature parity. So, yeah, Blue says you have to delete the loopback via SSH. Yeah, I was thinking about doing that, but I also remembered that only this internet host has SSH, and it's a Linux box. It's a Linux VM. All the network devices are telnet devices. And this is from, and I'm sorry, it kind of looks silly, but this is from the DevNet lab. So yeah, you can't really SSH. I mean, I couldn't even log into it to SSH it. Or what I could do is use NSO, configure SSH, and then deploy the service, and then SSH into it, remove the loopback, and then redeploy the service. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that. Nick asked if there was a syncing interval to enforce compliance like in Puppet. Blue says, yeah, NSO has policy rules for that. Yeah, Blues, you seem like you got a little bit of experience with NSO. Yeah, I would have, Nick, I would have had to just guess and say probably. Like I said, I'm still kind of reading into the documentation on it. And that's it. All right, so we've added our device. We created an NSO instance. We've added our devices. We've run show commands. We've collected device information. We've updated device config. We pulled operational status. We did a compliance check, and then we created our own service and then deployed it as a service instance. So that's about it. That is what I wanted to go over tonight. Obviously, we are deep into this. I mean, we're 3 hours deep, so probably the longest stream I've had. I'll definitely rate this a 5-star. There we go. So I guess I know I'm a little ahead of everyone by like whatever I said, 15-20 seconds. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask your questions now, and we can talk about it. But otherwise, that was it. I mean, I had a really good time. A lot of NSO is a pretty sweet tool. I think that's the bottom line. Especially because the extensibility, and I haven't looked at how like the NEDs are built, and I know like that's kind of blending in with Cisco support and how they do it, and how they sell the product. But I'd be interested on like the process of how to build a NED and what that looks like. And they said they could turn it around in a few days according to that learning lab. If that's the case, then I mean, there's so much that can be done with NSO. Then and it has an API that you can integrate into additional workflows. That's awesome. Blue says if anyone changes the config out of band in the policy you configure, it activates. NSO restores the config automatically. Holy crap. Blues, if that's true, I think they just solved like configuration compliance for most companies. Nick asked if it's a full feature, that policy. If it's a full feature functionality, it has to be paid for. I would guess yes, but I'll let Blues answer it as well. Nick says he haven't touched on the testing in a CI/CD pipeline. Yeah, and that's what I got to get to as well. You know, like once I learn, like I just went through all of that. It seemed pretty straightforward. Obviously, like I said, I'll be going through it again, adding my own network, my own CML network devices into it. But like, then I have to kind of dive into the services aspect, and then like, okay, well, how do I integrate that into a CI/CD pipeline? What makes sense? What doesn't? Because obviously, like that takes care of config verification or configuration, validation. It's transactional, so you have the rollback included as well. So it's pretty awesome stuff. I can understand why some of its full features are behind, you know, a paywall, because it really is, it's pretty slick for sure. And we didn't really dive in. I know I showed it a couple times. We didn't really dive in. There's a web GUI as well, that you could probably do everything that we did through the CLI. But Nick said, I wonder if that is a bullet item in the expert lab. Let me look. Testing in a CI/CD pipeline. So the only thing that they mentioned this in the CI/CD pipeline here is use Git in a CI/CD troubleshoot issues, and then use Git in a CI/CD development workflow. With NSO, it's tough, man. It really is tough. When you look through all this, there's a lot. And initially I was like, oh yeah, like I took breaking it up, and I was like, okay, like that's RESTconf, NetConf, got it. Ansible, Terraform. But then whenever you look at it holistically and all like the power of these tools, you're like, man, if you combine everything together, mixed with like software development and design in the section 1, man, you really have to understand these tools of what they do and what they don't do, and what does something better than the other. So it'll be interesting. All I have to say is this DevNet Expert Lab is going to be interesting. Blue said that it is a full feature. So yeah, so if that automatic polling, I guess you could call it, where NSO basically will do a automatic sync with the devices, do a sync from, then it's a full feature and you got to pay for it. William says, great stream. Gonna take my first crack at DevCore on Saturday. Okay, so this Saturday. So we'll see how that goes. These streams and lurking in Discord have been a great help. Well, that's awesome. And I say it like, good luck with the DevCore. Don't be scared. Don't be like scared when you're hit with the first few questions. You're like, whoa, like it's a legit, like it's considered the DevNet expert written. Kind of like how the Encore exam is the CCIE written. It's a tough test. It's probably the toughest I've had, or I've taken, I should say. But just the only thing I will tell you, William, is just keep an eye on the time. Make sure to keep your time management well, because that's what I had a struggle with the first time. I had to take it twice. The first time I failed, but it was mostly because of my time management. I had to rush through things towards the end. Nick says, and have to do all that in 8 hours? I don't know if I can do that. Hard enough doing one script. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah. Yeah, Nick, I'm the same. I think the same thing, but I have, so I follow Hank Preston on Twitter, and I also have watched his interviews with like David Bombal and Eric Cho, and so I'm trying to think of what he said on. I don't know which podcast or where he said it, but I remember he mentioned that it was it's difficult. It's difficult to make questions for this sort of exam because there's so much, right? But you have to remember it's only for 8 hours. And within that 8 hours, it's two parts. One, there's a 3-hour section on just design and development. And then the 5-hour part is your actual like hands-on keyboard programming, troubleshooting. It's hard to tell someone, like you said, building a script can take you 5 hours, right? With the right amount of troubleshooting. So he's mentioned that a couple times in a few interviews or podcasts I've watched, where he's like, yeah, I totally get it. Like, even writing one script in 8 hours can be tough. So I think they understand. It sounds like the people creating the test questions and creating the test, they get it. Like, they come from this side of the house where it's like, okay, I've struggled before, and all I did was I missed some sort of indentation or I missed a curly brace, and it took me 3 hours to figure it out. So, yeah. I think they get it. So hopefully it's a fair test, a fair exam with a. Marco's asked, Dan, is this your first CCIE exam level? Yes, this will be my first expert level exam attempt. So that's another piece of it too, right? Like, you hear about CCIE, giving up their personal life, figuring out with their family and studying, 8-hour days. And so, like, I feel it. I mean, I can tell you, like, I'm not putting in 8 hours a day on all of this. But I feel like I'm putting in enough time and using the right resources to where it's a time constraint. Like, I work a full-time job. So, working and then diving right into this for 2 hours every night, I mean, it's tough. It is really tough. William says, nah, man, I've been taking Cisco exams since forever, so no worries. I don't really expect to pass most exams first time. It's usually just an expensive study session. Hey, that's funny. I saw it on Twitter, I think, that a lot of people always joke about the CCIE. They just say it's the world's most expensive lunch. So, yeah. No, and William, that's the way to look at it too. I know a lot of people, like, I think schooling does that to you a lot, where it's like, if you fail the first time, you suck, and you'll never ever be able to redeem yourself. Like, you fail the class, right? Well, it's not like that in the real world with certifications and exams. There are some for sure that, like, if you fail once, it's like, okay, kind of weird. But, like, certifications especially, you can take them multiple times. William adds, but I'm pretty deep into this stuff day to day, so I might get lucky. Worst case scenario, I can shift focus to another exam in time to recert my MP. Yeah, I would say if you get a relatively close score to, passing, like, let's say you fail, right? If you have a relatively close score, I think you should just keep going after it. You'll it's quite like it's a good relief. Like, it's a hard exam, but when you're done it, you're like, okay, like, I feel like I understood. I really know my stuff, because, like, it tests you. So but yeah, I have a lot to do. I got a lot to do with NSO. I have a lot, because we didn't even touch on the Python side of it. It mentions it a few times, and there's learning labs for the advanced, well, quote unquote, the advanced topics. So I'll probably have to dive into those as well. I might dive into those, reserve the sandbox again, dive into the advanced topics, do everything, and then try from scratch to rebuild everything, going through the learning labs again. That's probably what I'll do. But with 30% of the exam being just this section and NSO having 4 parts to it, they're very particular, which is nice, but man, that's crazy. That is a lot. I don't know. Sometimes I look at these exam topics and I'm like, man, this should be fun. Like, as crazy as it sounds, I'm like, this actually might be a fun exam, because like obviously time constrains the test itself, so it's not like they can say, oh, go build a microservice application that has this, that goes into it. They could, but like there has to be some boundaries around it, right? Like they have to have, like, for example, your Kubernetes cluster up, or they have to have a Docker compose file ready. Like there might be some things already pre-staged for you if it's going to be like that deep of a task. So I don't know though. I look at everything and I'm just like, hey, we'll see. Worst case scenario, I get a crazy experience, right? So all right. Well, I think that's it. That's it for me. This is definitely, one of my longest streams. I really appreciate, really from the bottom of my heart, really appreciate everyone that stuck around, that's been chatting the whole night. I mean, even if you dropped in for a few minutes and chatted, hey, I'm glad you're tuning in. I'm real happy that I can kind of go through this with you. And as always, if there's any questions, feel free to obviously put it in the chat during the stream, but I'm very active on Twitter at DevNet Dan, so that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. That's all I have. So I guess next Thursday, let's take a look at next Thursday real quick. Yeah, Nick, thanks. You have a good night as well, and thanks again. I really mean it. I really appreciate you sticking around. Thank you. Okay, so next week we're gonna do some on-box automation with EEM and IOX, which is like your guest shell and deploying Docker containers on a Cisco 9000. So it's another DevNet sandbox, but we'll take a look at it. So it's either that or we might just look at NSO again, but I'm going to try to wrap up NSO this weekend, so especially with the long weekend, President's Day and whatnot. So all right, well, I'm signing off for the night, and if you need me, you have questions, find me on Twitter. Feel free to message me, or you can just reply to my tweets. And stick around for a quick outro. This is that sick outro I said I was trying for the first time. I'm sure it might buffer, so give it a chance, but I was just trying something different for the stream. So have a good night, everyone, and I will talk to you next Thursday.
Till I get up, time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays.